the gold rush is over. And most people have absolutely no idea it already ended. Right now, as you're watching this video, a massive shift is happening in the digital economy that will permanently separate the people who saw it coming from the people who didn't. And by the time this video is done, you're going to understand exactly what's changing, why 2026 is the year that everything flips, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it before the window closes completely. But first, let me paint you a picture. Imagine it's 1849. You've heard the rumors. Gold in California. Everyone's talking about it. Some guy named Marshall found flakes in a river, and suddenly the entire country is losing their minds. Thousands of people pack up everything they own, leave their families, cross mountains and deserts, all chasing the promise of riches. And here's the thing, some of them got incredibly wealthy. The early ones, the ones who moved fast and took the risk before everyone else showed up with shovels. But by the time the newspapers were writing front-page stories about the gold rush, by the time it became common knowledge, the easy gold was gone. What was left required industrial equipment, massive capital, and expertise that most prospectors simply didn't have. Sound familiar? Because that is exactly what happened with the digital gold rush of the last 15 years. And we're at that exact same inflection point right now in 2026. So let's talk about what the digital gold rush actually was. Starting around 2010 and accelerating hard through 2020, the internet created something genuinely unprecedented in human history. Ordinary people with laptops and internet connections could build audiences, create content, launch products, and generate serious income in ways that were simply impossible before. Dropshipping stores were printing money for people who figured them out early. YouTube channels built in 2012 were making their creators financially independent by 2015. Crypto early adopters turned a few $100s into life-changing fortunes. Affiliate marketers, course creators, social media consultants, Amazon FBA sellers, the opportunities were everywhere, and the barriers to entry were almost nothing. Just time, some hustle, and a willingness to figure things out. The internet at that stage was essentially an undiscovered country. The algorithms were simple, the competition was low, and the attention available was massive and cheap to capture. If you got there early and you understood even the basics, you could stake your claim and build something real. And millions of people did exactly that. But here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The undiscovered country has been discovered. Thoroughly. Completely. Every corner of it has been mapped and monetized and optimized and competed to death. That same dropshipping model that made people millionaires in 2016 now operates in a market so saturated and so expensive to advertise in that most people who try it lose money. That YouTube strategy that worked like magic in 2018 now requires competing with tens of millions of creators, a platform algorithm that's changed entirely, and viewer expectations that have risen dramatically. The first mover advantage that created so much wealth in the digital space has largely been exhausted. And this is not a pessimistic take. This is just reality. And understanding reality is the first step to navigating it intelligently. Here's where 2026 becomes the actual turning point rather than just another year in a slow decline. Three massive forces are colliding right now simultaneously, and together they're creating something that looks less like a market correction and more like a complete structural transformation. Force number one is the AI consolidation. Over the past 2 years, artificial intelligence has gone from an interesting tool that tech people use to an absolute requirement for anyone trying to compete in digital business. The content that used to take a skilled team weeks to produce can now be generated in hours. The research that required expertise can be done by anyone with a good prompt. The designs, the copy, the code, the strategy documents, all of it is now accessible to anyone willing to pay a monthly subscription. This sounds like democratization, and in some ways it is. But what it actually means for the digital economy is a total collapse in the value of volume-based work. If AI can write 1,000 blog posts in a day, a blog post is worth almost nothing. If AI can generate 100 product descriptions in an hour, writing product descriptions as a service is no longer viable. The skills that the digital gold rush rewarded are being systematically devalued, and that process is accelerating dramatically in 2026. Force number two is the platform maturation. Every major platform that served as infrastructure for digital gold rush wealth creation is now in late-stage maturity. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon, Google Search, Facebook ads. Every single one of these has gotten dramatically harder and more expensive to use effectively compared to 5 years ago. The organic reach has collapsed. The paid advertising costs have skyrocketed. The algorithm complexity has increased to the point where entire professional industries exist just to try to reverse engineer how they work. Platform maturity is normal and expected, but we're hitting a wall simultaneously across every major channel. And that convergence is creating a crisis for people whose income depends on these platforms. Force number 3 is the attention economy recession. Human attention is the fundamental resource that the entire digital economy runs on. Every business model, every content strategy, every advertising campaign ultimately depends on capturing and holding human attention. And what we're seeing in 2026 is something genuinely new. Attention is not just scarce, it's becoming actively resistant. People are burned out on content. They're overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information hitting them from every direction. They're developing sophisticated psychological filters that automatically block out anything that feels like it's competing for their eyeballs. The average person is getting measurably harder to reach, measurably less responsive to advertising, and measurably more selective about what they actually give their time to. So what does positioning yourself look like practically? It starts with a very honest assessment of what you're actually offering in the digital space right now. Ask yourself this question: if an AI system or a well-funded competitor could replicate what you do for a fraction of the cost, what would be left? What would still require you specifically? That remainder, whatever's left after everything replicable is stripped away, that's your actual competitive advantage in the new digital economy. And if the honest answer is that there's not much left, that's not a reason to panic. That's information. That's the starting point for building something that actually has a future. The opportunities that are genuinely expanding in 2026 cluster around a few specific areas. Deep expertise with verifiable results. Communities built around genuine shared identity rather than just shared interests. Personalized services that combine human judgment with AI execution to deliver outcomes that neither could achieve alone. Trust-based businesses where the relationship is the product, not just the vehicle for selling a product. These are the areas where barriers to entry are rising, not falling, which means getting in now still makes sense in a way that getting into blogging or dropshipping in 2024 simply does not. The people who understand this are quietly building the next generation of digital businesses right now. They're not making noise about it because the advantage comes from moving while others are still running the old playbook. They understand that the digital gold rush created a gold rush mentality, and that mentality, the idea that speed and volume and hacking the algorithm is the path to success, is the mental model that's being destroyed. What replaces it is slower, harder, and ultimately more valuable. It's the idea that sustainable success in a mature digital economy comes from being genuinely excellent at something that matters to people who care, and then finding those people and serving them at a level that creates real loyalty. That's not a new idea. It's actually the oldest idea in business. The digital gold rush just made people forget it for a decade or so. Here's the bottom line. The window that made the digital economy accessible to anyone with hustle and a laptop is closing. That's real, and you need to accept it. But the window to build something that actually matters, something that compounds over time, something that the next wave of technology makes more valuable rather than less, that window is open right now, in 2026. At this specific moment, the people watching this video who take that seriously and act on it are going to look back at 2026 as the year they made the right call. The ones who dismiss it are going to look back at it as the year they should have listened. The gold rush is ending. The era of actual digital wealth building is just beginning. The question is which side of that line you're going to be on. If this gave you something real to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on exactly how to position yourself for what's coming, the next video is right there waiting for you.